Hi there. My name is Stephanie Bucklin, and I'm a holistic lifestyle coach. I started my YouTube channel to share all of the wisdom that I have about holistic wellness. And I've been finding these wonderful healers in my community. I started a program called Connecting to Healing interview series. And my purpose is to share healing from other people's perspectives and also to give people more information that I can share from my own wisdom. So I do these interviews with people that know more than I do, and it's been amazing. Every single one of these interviews, I learned so much. So today's interview is with Dr. Benjamin Benulis. He's a chiropractor here in Phoenix, and he's had a very interesting healing journey. So I invite you to just settle in and listen to our conversation. The topic of today's Connecting to Healing interview is how to reverse autoimmune diseases without drugs. This is a very important conversation, and I think it's something that everyone is going to want to hear. So please do subscribe to my channel if you would like updates. Hit that little bell for notifications, and also feel free to reach out to either one of us. Me, I'm on stephaniebucklin.com, and then you can find Dr. Ben as well. I will include his links down in the description below. Thank you so much, and we'll be right with you. So, welcome. I am here with Dr. Ben Benulis, and we are going to talk today about how to reverse autoimmune diseases without drugs. I'm really excited about this conversation because I am a self-healer myself, and I appreciate any opportunities to heal without, Western medicine and their ways of doing things. So, hi, Ben.
Hey, Stephanie, thanks for having me on. Excited to do this. I know we've talked about it for a while, and so here we are. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I understand that you have had quite a journey in autoimmune diseases yourself. So let's share a little bit about that with the audience. What did you endure, and how did it work out for you?
Sure. So 10 years ago, more like 11 years ago now, I was not a doctor. I was just some guy working in a cubicle. And I came down with a bunch of stuff at the time, I didn't know what it was. And I had chronic fatigue, eczema all over my hands, really bad digestive issues, chronic pain, muscle pain throughout my body. And it didn't really add up to anything. And I started going to doctors and trying to, okay, can you give me some medication for it, right? Because I was definitely in that Western medicine paradigm that, we can talk about its merits and its downfalls as part of this discussion, I think, because it's not like, I don't want to say that it's terrible, but for serving what I had at the time, it was not working. Like I just basically got shuffled around with like, oh, we'll run your blood labs. Oh, everything on the labs came out normal. You're okay. We'll send you to the gastroenterologist for your stomach, and the dermatologist for your skin, and the rheumatologist for your muscle pain, and the endocrinologist because of your fatigue. And so one doctor multiplies into four, and then none of them can figure it out, and they're all shuffling me around, and I'm just going from appointment to appointment. No one can give me a diagnosis. If they put me on a medication, it's to try it out and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And I was really getting like just nowhere. And it was not just that like, okay, you can't figure it out. That's one thing. But the way the system works, they always just have another guy, and they send you on to. So it's like, no one really seems to care or take ownership. Like no one ever sat me down and was like, hey, Ben, we know you're suffering with all this stuff. You go into like a million doctors and they run every lab and put you on all these medications and you're not getting better. You don't know what's going on, but we're going to get to the bottom of this. Like no one ever said that to me. because it's just the way the system works.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. And so eventually I just got to the point where I was fed up, you know, and I didn't really know any other way. Like to me, like anybody who did anything alternative was like because they couldn't get into medical school, like that they were just too stupid to do the conventional route. And then here I was having exhausted the conventional route and was like, well, time to give that a shot, because I mean it was getting bad to the point where, you know, I was sleeping all weekend. I was so fatigued. Every meal I ate was like blowing up my stomach. Like I always had digestive problems, like 24/7. The skin thing was like, it was more embarrassing than anything, but the digestion and the pain and the fatigue were like almost disabling. Like I was like, how am I gonna work, you know, if this keeps progressing? So it was like I couldn't just keep going through the merry-go-round, you know, like I had to get better or I was going to get worse. And so that's when I started investigating alternatives. And so, you know, I came across a bunch of information that said, you know, if you just eat healthier, you know, if you just include more fruits and vegetables, a lot of these problems get better or they go away altogether. And I thought, well, that sounds nice, but I'm going to try to figure something else out. That'll be my last resort if nothing else works.
Right. Don't want to give up the pizza and beer, right?
Oh no, it's totally, people like see me now and they see how I eat and like all this, and they think I've been like doing it my whole life. And then I tell them like, oh yeah, back in my drinking days, back in my pizza eating days. And they're like, what, really? Dr. Ben used to do that? Yeah, so anyway, exhausted all the alternative things, you know, bought these like teas and tinctures and like skin creams and like probiotics and, you know, just kind of supplements. And this came from some, you know, remote forest in Malaysia, and it's got the highest amount of whatever in it. And, you know,
yep.
Went down that whole road, got nowhere. And then it's finally like, okay, just gotta actually start eating more fruits and vegetables and healthier and see what happens. And it was, so there's something called what Tony Robbins calls emotional leverage, when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. I finally got to the point where like the pain of changing my diet just seemed so astronomical. Like it had to get where I was almost disabled to be able to do it. Right. And then I did it and I found out like, oh, it wasn't so bad. But that was basically my autoimmune story. When I started changing my diet, things shifted. And then, the more I did it, the better I felt. And then I got to a point where like the symptoms really started remitting, and I just got more and more, it was a positive feedback loop. And I just got more and more into it, more and more excited about it, because I was finally feeling better. I like noticed in my body. So that was my story. And then, eventually after that, like health became my hobby. It became something I just, probably like you, just talk about all the time. Don't shut up about it. Annoy all your friends, annoy your partner. Like, just,
yeah, I can't shut up about it, right?
And I was like, I guess I must be passionate about this. This must be what I got to do with my life. And so that's when I, made the career change to go back to school. I was working as an engineer at a microchip company, and it was good in a lot of ways, but it wasn't really like my highest calling. So that's when I made the shift. I guess that's the long answer to your question. What's my autoimmune journey been like? And you can fill out in any gaps or any questions you have on that.
Okay. Yeah, it's honestly, I think that's a lot of our stories. Healer be healed is a common theme with healers. We aren't really led to healing until we have our own health crisis. And then all of a sudden we realize something and it clicks, and then we want to scream from the rooftops that this really works and you guys need to listen to me, right? So I think that's just part of the process,
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, I'm at a point where like someone is, some sort of healer or doctor or therapist or whatever, if they haven't been through their own stuff, like I'm less inclined to think that they have credibility or want to work with them, or refer to them, right?
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I want to be a doctor. That would be a fun way to make a living. Like, I'm good at memorizing biology facts. You're probably not going to be like that helpful. truth be told. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, so I have a list of questions for you, and we talked a little bit about this before, but we wanted to talk about what autoimmune disease is and how it works and what the root causes are. So first, let's start with, what are autoimmune diseases, and what do people really deal with?
Sure, great question. Maybe we should have, and now that I'm thinking about it, I should have explained this from the get-go, but basically, okay. Autoimmune diseases are the word autoimmune, from the auto from self, and immune being your system that fights infection and disease. Your white blood cells, okay? So what happens is that system in an autoimmune case attacks the body itself. So instead of fighting, the flu or COVID or, measles or whatever, that thing gets turned around, gets confused, and starts attacking, your skin or your kidneys or your brain or your intestines or your thyroid or some part of your body or multiple parts of your body. And depending on what part of the body that is, they give the autoimmune disease a different name. So if it attacks your thyroid, it's Hashimoto's disease. If it attacks your colon, it's Crohn's disease or colitis. If it attacks your brain, it's MS. If it attacks, let's see, your skin, might be something like lupus, and so on. And so different autoimmune diseases have different symptoms, but there's a lot in commonality. You asked about, we can talk about. So generally, it's an inflammatory condition. So there is some fatigue involved, usually brain fog. Usually almost all of them have some sort of digestive component. Usually there's a sensitivity or multiple sensitivities. And these can vary, okay? Because it can be like sensitive to foods. It can be sensitive to smells. It can be sensitive to hot weather. It can be sensitive to cold weather. It can be sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies. It can be sensitive to emotions. In fact, a lot of people I've noticed, there's no real like data in the literature to back this up, but just clinically what I've noticed working with people with autoimmune conditions over the past 10 or so years is that a lot of them are like what we would call empathic or energetically sensitive, emotionally sensitive.
Yep.
And we can go into my theory behind why, but that sensitivities is a big one. So that kind of encapsulates what autoimmune disease is.
So where do they come from? Do you have you studied the data on like the source or the root causes of these things?
Sure, that's a good question. I've spent a lot of time looking at that, and don't have clear answers. I can't nail it down to one thing for sure. It's very what we call multifactorial. So there's a lot of contributing factors. So what I found mostly is that usually there's some sort of toxicity, some sort of synthetic chemical toxicity, whether it's heavy metals or it's something else. And then usually there's some sort of past trauma component, whether it's physical, mental, emotional trauma that's stored in the nervous system. And so the chemicals can come from a number of sources. They can come from the food. They can come from the water supply and the air supply, and they can come from medications. What I see often the most time, what we have a lot of concrete evidence for, it's very controversial, but I'm going to throw this out here. It's in the literature. I can send you if you want, but vaccines use what are called adjuvants in their production, which are things that are designed to like basically agitate the immune system. So, if we take, a virus and just inject you with a live virus, you probably get sick, right? But if we weaken the virus so that your immune system has a chance to fight it off, well, then that weakened attenuated virus shows up in the vaccine, your body goes, that's nothing to worry about there. But if we included an attenuated virus and an adjuvant like mercury, aluminum, polysorbate 80, things like that, then it shocks the immune system into producing a response that goes, oh, there's danger, better attack that thing. And so, but the problem is that when you shock the immune system into doing something, well, all drugs have side effects, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you have a drug that's designed to affect how the immune system operates, Okay, that's a vaccine. It's supposed to enhance your immunity. Well, if drugs have side effects, sometimes the side effect can be that it causes the immune system to not work the way they want it to work. So that is definitely a source. We see things like the Gardasil vaccine has very high rates of autoimmune disease side effects. You can read the study on that one. I made videos on it. It's hidden in plain sight. But yeah, a lot. Not to go down a rabbit hole with that, but it's definitely like a known cause.
Okay.
Yeah.
Toxicity is something that I've been really interested in studying over the years, and that I realized that I was sensitive years ago and became completely obsessed with reading ingredients and being really careful on what I put on my skin, what I put into my body. And even still to this day, I'm challenged by that because I still have these sensitivities. So let's talk a little bit about the mainstream medical system. How does allopathic medicine deal with autoimmune disease? Why do they have such a hard time with it?
You know, the mainstream medical system has a hard time treating these diseases. They can put you on drugs, but you never really get better, right?
Yeah.
And you have side effects, and you know, and you still kind of like you have ups and downs. And a lot of times they'll put you on a drug for a while, and it'll kind of work for a while, and then it'll kind of stop working, and then they got to figure out the next one they got to put you on, and it's this merry-go-round. And the main reason is that there's two main types of drugs that they use for autoimmune disease. One is immunosuppressants. Okay, so this is the idea that okay, your immune system is attacking, you know, your joints or your colon. You got to suppress your immune system so it doesn't do that. Okay, but what happens, Stephanie, if you suppress someone's immune system? What's the side effect?
They will be susceptible to everything.
Yeah, you kind of need that immune system, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's a disease going around the past like year or so. You might have heard of it. It's kind of a big deal. You know, we won't name its name, but you know, it's like not something you want to be vulnerable to, right?
Definitely.
So that approach ends up kind of being like whack-a-mole. Well, it's like we'll suppress your immune system, but now you have skin infections and coughs and colds, and we'll give you other medicines for that. But at least, hey, your joint pain's not as bad, right? So you never really get to health with that approach. You're constantly just chasing your tail, trading one symptom in for another. So that's immunosuppressant. And then the other is anti-inflammatories like steroids, which are going to reduce inflammation, but they're going to cause blood sugar issues. They're going to cause sleep issues and stuff like this. They're going to have side effects. And so no one's really looking at like, well, why is your immune system acting funny in the first place? And why are you so inflamed in the first place? That's not really the mainstream medical approach. The mainstream medical approach is to look at your symptoms and fight the symptoms, fight the disease. And so what I really want to impress upon people and I try to teach is that stop trying to fight the disease. Like this is like, well, I'm a rheumatoid arthritis warrior. I'm a lupus warrior. I'm an autoimmune warrior. Got my sword and my shield, and I'm going to go fight the disease. And what I really want to impress upon people is that paradigm is like not the approach you want, right? You really want an approach of creating health. Instead of fighting disease and fighting this and fighting that and being a warrior, what can I do to just bring more health into my life? Okay, under the premise that if you create enough health by eating better, sleeping better, exercising, meditating, taking good care of yourself, that eventually you'll create so much health that disease won't even be a problem. But that's a pretty big shift for people to make.
Most definitely. So how can we heal without drugs? You mentioned a few of those paths.
Sure. And I guess I was leading into that, right? That like if we take the focus away from how do I fight the disease with the drugs and the injections and the surgeries and the pills and the supplements and magic like roots from Malaysia. We focus on like, how can I just do the things that will create the most health as possible, which is eating as much fruit as possible, as much leafy greens, vegetables as possible, getting in regular exercise, getting enough sleep at night. That is like society is in this crazy sleep debt situation right now. It's like we've got all these glowing rectangles, and I know we're both looking at one right now. And it's interfering with our ability to sleep. But just doing those to the maximum, right? Like not just like, packing a few extra carrot sticks with lunch, but like how about drinking an entire green smoothie that's like, half a gallon for lunch, like that, like really creating as much health as you can. And when you do that, things shift. But that idea is so radical for a lot of people that they're like, can't even wrap their minds around it. Like, you really eat 10 pounds of fruits and vegetables a day, Dr. Ben? Yes, I do. But that is the approach that works. And so the more health you want, the more like you got to work at creating it. And what we find is that when we do that, when the focus is on health, the body has the ability to heal itself, right, Stephanie?
Absolutely.
And we can say this from like a very trite, the body can heal itself, right? But for anybody listening, like if they cut their hand, right, it's got to heal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how could you stop your hand from healing if you got a cut on it? Like, what could you do
to stop it from healing? Keep touching it, or keep putting crap into it, or just keep inflaming it, right?
If you wanted the cut to heal faster and not get infected, what would you do?
Cover it up.
You cover it up in bandage. Yeah.
Yep.
And so what does the bandage do?
Basically protects the skin.
Yes.
So that the skin can do the work underneath.
Yes, the skin does the work. The bandage is there to keep the dirt out, to keep the bacteria out, to keep whatever is interfering out. But does the bandage have any intrinsic healing properties to it?
Not really, no.
No, the body does it, right? Because I mean, some people are thinking like, oh, well, Dr. Ben's just going to say, turn yourself into a mummy, just wrap yourself in Band-Aids. Rheumatoid arthritis will go away. No, it's not. That's not how it works. No one ever takes it.
Would be that simple.
I mean, I'm just saying it it sounds like absurdity, but it illustrates a point, right? Like no one ever takes a bandage off their hand and goes, oh, the cut's gone. Wow, Band-Aid, you healed me. Wow, this is amazing. No, they went, oh,
maybe when you're 6.
But the Band-Aid just prevented interference, right? That's all it did. It helped the body do its own thing. And for a football analogy that a lot of you guys probably won't understand, but like it basically did the blocking and your body did the running, right? Like it just kept things from getting in the way.
Right.
So when it comes to something like a severe, so this is like, a very like minor thing, like the body healed it, right? And so people say, oh, well, the body can heal a cut, but it can't heal from, rheumatoid arthritis or lupus, right? Well, the fact is that it can. You just need to like really just like snowplow out all of the possible interferences. Okay, so this means the animal foods, this means the processed junk foods, this means the cigarettes, this means the alcohol, this means the environmental toxins, as far as like things you put on your body. This means the sleep deprivation is another inhibitor. Okay, the not exercising is an inhibitor. So we just snowplow all the stuff out of the way, and we provide the optimal conditions for the body, like no messing around. Fruits and vegetables, sleep, sunshine, water, exercise, and like to the max. And then the body has a fighting chance, right? So that is the approach that works.
Mm-hmm. So how do you incorporate plant-based nutrition into your practice? How do you explain how powerful food as medicine can be to someone who's, say, eaten toxic stuff their entire life and not really willing to make that change? How do they step in that direction? Sure,
good question. And first off, I want to like kind of disagree with you on something that you asked, and not in like a pejorative way, but like I don't really like to use the word food as medicine, right?
Oh, okay.
because medicine is premised upon this idea that like, oh, something's wrong with you, take a medicine, you'll feel better.
Right.
Like food is like, well, if you just eat, food that creates health, you won't have health problems. I think to say that food is medicine actually kind of speaks kind of badly about food.
Oh,
That like I really don't like this approach of like this is it. Well, instead of atorvastatin or Humira, I'm taking strawberries. It's like, no, that's a different paradigm. It's a different paradigm. That's
okay.
Drugs get you sick when you're well, but then somehow they get you well when you're sick. This is the idea that like, health is health. And you're either creating it or you're destroying it. Okay. So to answer your original question, how do we keep somebody who's like really sick and has been eating the standard American diet and it's like, yeah, I don't believe any of that. I would just say like, try it for a period of time. Like, like I said, you have an extra bag of carrot sticks with your lunch, probably not going to see much of a difference. But if you make a big change, even if it's for 7 days, 14 days, like you're going to notice a difference. So, and that's what I was doing. It was like, I told you my story. It was like, I took the Pepsi challenge. Like I did not want it to work because I knew that would mean I would have to change, but I got to a point where I was willing to give it a shot. And a lot of people aren't there. Like a lot of people literally, it's like, I can never stop eating pizza. I don't care if I get cancer and die. And, it's like they're literally never going to be there. And so people come to me all the time like, Dr. Ben, my mom, she's got lupus and, she's on a million medications and she's miserable all the time and this and that. And I try to talk to her and she won't change her diet or watch any of your videos. What do I do? You can be an example, but like she's just not at a point where she's ready to make a change.
Yep.
So
where those pain points become more than, you said it before, how do we get to a point where the pain is worse than just dealing with it on a daily basis? So yeah.
So I think one of the things you can do is you can make it fun. Because then it's like, oh, I have to change my diet and I have to eat a bunch of weird stuff. It's like, no, I'm drinking grapefruit juice this morning. Where did I get the grapefruits? My friend had them on a tree. I went to her house and picked them. Right? It was fun. I got to like climb in the tree and pick fruit. I was like a little kid again. And then I went home and I juiced them. That was super fun. And it was all a very enjoyable experience. So it's like, it's actually not that bad. So one of the things I try to do, and anybody can do, is just be a good example and show that like, it's fun, it's easy, and it works. And when people see that, they're like, okay, it's not as daunting. I don't have to get the pain of change, staying the same, to be like this high. Like, pain of changing is like here. So, it's not too bad,
Yeah.
So I guess that's a long-winded answer to your question.
Okay. So what are the other elements of your own self-care practices that you share with your clients?
Sure. So I think getting good rest is huge. I think that, like we talked about, a lot of people have trauma and just generally like a dysregulated nervous system, which is why they have sensitivities, like we talked about, because their nervous system is on high alert all the time. So it's like, oh, I smell a perfume chemical from across the room. Red alert. So getting enough rest helps reset the nervous system, getting it out of that fight or flight or freeze mode.
Do you have any tools that you give people to help with sleep?
I would say I have some ideas around it. One of the things is turning off electronics, ideally 2 hours before you go to bed, but at least an hour. And that includes Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah, put your phone on airplane, turn it off.
Yeah, because your brain secretes a chemical called melatonin, which helps fall asleep. Mm-hmm. And if it's getting, it's seeing light from screens and it's getting bombarded by wireless signals, whether it's from your phone or your Wi-Fi or whatever, it still doesn't think it's nighttime.
Right.
So it's not going to secrete the melatonin. So even if you get in bed, you're like in bed, like, computer brain. Why I can't fall asleep? It's because your brain's still so stimulated.
Yeah.
So, and there's other tools. If you're exercising during the day, that helps you be tired at night. If you're not drinking stimulating beverages with caffeine, aka coffee, energy drinks, soda, whatever else, the Four Locos, whatever the cool kids are drinking these days, you're not doing those. That's also going to help. So, it's one of those things. It's like you just start with the basics, because you try to do everything at once. So maybe it's working on reducing your caffeine consumption. Maybe it's working on your relationship with the glowing rectangles and not being exposing yourself to so many of them.
Right.
There's lots of areas for improvement, but don't try to do it all at once.
Right. You mentioned meditation.
Yeah.
Do you think meditation can help with sleep?
Yeah, definitely. I think it can help with, a lot of things as far as like peace of mind, clarity of mind, and all that. Which then, obviously, at the end of the day, if your mind isn't like a jumbled mess, it's easier to fall asleep. But it does work therapeutically to some degree, or it's like, okay, it's time to go to bed, and like I am a jumbled mess. How am I gonna fall asleep? Spend some time like sitting, meditating, just noticing your breath, listening to a guided meditation if you want, but some sort of way of like winding things down can definitely help. And like I mentioned, it helps with the nervous system overall, because the nervous system controls and coordinates every function in your body, including Stephanie, the immune system, right?
Yep.
So if the nervous system's haywire, it's going to cause the immune system and potentially any other system to go haywire. So
definitely.
And meditation are two ways to like turn that nervous system more into a balanced state. Now, does it happen overnight? No, it takes months, takes years.
So it's a journey. That's what I tell my clients. It's going to be a journey. It's not just going to be a quick fix. The answer to your problem is never going to be a quick fix. It's just not how life works.
The good news is that like you continue to see improvements, and I'll share my story. And I think we talked about some. You want to hear some of my client stories. Is like when you're creating health, there's really no upper bound. Like you can keep seeing improvements.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people, they think like, if I could just get back to how I was when I was 27 or whatever it is, right? Like if I could just get back to this period, like I would be so happy, right? Yeah. But bad news is you don't have a time machine. You can't go back in time. What you can do is you can create a new you. What you can find is that new you can actually be healthier than that 27 or whenever it was back in time. Like that's what I know. It's like, I just wanted to not be in pain with my digestion and my muscles. I just wanted to have some energy. Like that's all I wanted in the beginning. Like I didn't have any of these grandiose plans, like become a healer or be super fit or have a meditation practice. Like I was literally just looking for like the next rung up the ladder. Like my standards were pretty low. But what I found is that when I did change my diet and my lifestyle, it had this compounding effect. It was like pretty soon I felt better than I ever remembered feeling, right? And that's when the evangelical switch got turned on. Like, you guys, you got to do this fruit vegetable thing, And so, like like your health just continues to improve, and you continue to see benefits that make you want to stick with it. And things that you didn't even know could happen start to happen. Like I've had that. We'll talk about client stories in a little bit here, but like basically positive side effects that people weren't expecting happen.
I love that. I love that part. It's a wonderful thing when someone realizes that not only do they feel better, but all these other beautiful experiences are showing up that they didn't even know that they could have because they've been so stuck in that pain process of just constant struggle, right? So yeah, I'd love to hear those stories. Let's talk a little bit about your clients. How do they respond to your autoimmune recovery program?
So, the big thing is sticking with it, right? And, do you got to do it 100% all the time? No, but like, the more health you create, the better you do, the faster you get well, the better you get results. Yeah. we're talking about unexpected side effects. I had one lady who, she came and saw me for lupus, right? And what's interesting is that, like, the disease has a lot of symptoms. You get pain in your joints, you get like usually like skin irritation on your face, and it just obliterates your kidneys, and you get a lot of fatigue. And so what she was coming to me for was like the main thing that was like really the toughest for her was she was on a high dose of prednisone, which I think I was alluding to, throws off your blood sugar. So she would get these like grumpy attacks, these like, ah! And like she would just lose it on her husband and her kids. And she's like, if I can just not make me so I can get if I can get off this prednisone, I can just like I can be a mom and like be a wife and like not be like this like I just turn into this like monster sometimes. I don't want to do that anymore. So that was the main thing. And so she did my program. Her doctor was able to dose her down off of that drug. The joint pain went away, the inflammation went away, but a couple of things that she never told me about improved. Because she went for a checkup, and the doctor's like, "What are you doing?" Well, this is Dr. Ben guy in America, and he's doing this with me. And one of the things she had was she had a bunch of precancerous lymph nodes in her armpit. They were like, "We got to check on this every 6 months to make sure it doesn't turn into something." So they're like, well, "Let's check your lymph nodes again," and they're like, "That's weird. They're normal."
Oh, like magic.
Yeah. And then she also had this like dry patch of skin on her nose that she'd done everything to try to remedy, like put all kinds of oils and creams and ointments and whatever on there, and it never really improved. And then she noticed one day that she'd stopped using all the stuff, and that it was just good to go. So that's what happens when you focus on creating health, like we talked about, and everything in the body vectors towards health. Like we mentioned, the process. And another guy, he was actually an old high school friend, one of my first clients, and he had ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune disease where the body attacks the large colon, the large bowel. The symptoms are really gross. We won't get into them. But he'd had it for like 15 years or something at that point. And he'd been doing Remicade, which was an immune suppressant drug. And he'd pretty much been mostly symptom free. Every once in a while he'd have a flare, but it was like under control. And he would go in every year for a yearly scope, right? They would scope out his
colon. That's a bummer. Just that alone. Those colonoscopies are no fun.
I've never done it, thank goodness. I hope I never have to do one. Yeah. But yeah, it's basically a camera that goes in your bum and checks your colon out to make sure everything's good. They just check on him every year. And he goes in, he's like 35 years old at the time. And he goes in for his yearly checkup, just like every year. And they go, "Oh, wow, this is bad. It's really bad. And you are at the point where we have to cut this colon out."
Oh no.
Which, for you guys to understand, they cut your colon out, and then you don't have a regular bowel movement anymore. You have what's called a colostomy bag, which is like surgically attached to your stomach, and basically your waste comes out there.
Yep.
And not fun. Definitely impedes your quality of life. Major surgery, life altering. Like something you want to avoid.
For sure.
That was like the record scratch. I was like, "What? Excuse me?
You want to cut my what out?" No,
yeah.
let's not
like,
do that.
What? No. And and he'd been like the most compliant patient for like 15 years, right? Like he'd just done everything they said and like followed them and like went and got his scope every year and took his medication and just did all the stuff that they told him to do. And then he was like, "Well, I don't want my colon cut out." And so that was kind of like his like tipping point of like, well, I'm going to look into other things, It's like, once the colon comes out, there's no putting it back in, right?
Right. No going back after that.
And so, I like to joke around. Did you ever watch the show Full House?
Yes, I love that show.
You remember Uncle Joey be like, "Cut it out," right? So I always joke, it's like, that's kind of like the medical approach. Like, it's not working, right? Cut it out. But no one really wants to do that. It's a last resort.
Yeah.
And so he was like Googling around, and he kind of noticed what I was doing on Facebook, and he reached out to me. He's like, hey, can you help me? Does this help me? Can we do something? And I was like, oh, I got you. So put him on a program, and basically he was a teacher, and it was like May or June at the time. And he was like, look, can I just buy like, a few months of time? Like, I'm going to try something else. And then like, when I come back in September, we'll do another scope. And, because this was back in Massachusetts where the school year is like September to June. And so, come back in September, we'll do another scope. And if I need to have the surgery, like I'll have it, but like, just give me some time. Like, just, I don't want to do it. I'm going to try some other stuff. And they're like, yeah, sure. Just come back in September. We'll do another scope and we'll check you out. So he does my program, and he is like, he's in danger of getting his colon cut out. So he is like to the T. Like
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm amazed. Right. And it's just like full steam ahead. It's like, I'm feeling so good. I haven't had any symptoms. Like I'm doing great. Like I'm loving this. I'm feeling really good. He wasn't working. So he really had like time to like really focus on creating health, taking care of himself. And he was married and everything. It wasn't like he was totally like he had some responsibilities, but like he really had the time off of work to like really focus on creating health. So he comes back in September. He's feeling really good. Goes in for a scope, and he's like, just kind of like hoping, things work out. And they bring him in, after the scope to like go over the results. And gastroenterologist is like, sir, we got a problem. We're going to reschedule you. There was some mistake at the lab, and the scope, we got the wrong scope because this one's like a perfectly healthy colon with like nothing wrong. And he's like, I think it might be me. Like, I don't think it's a mistake. Like, check it. And they're like, yeah, we'll just reschedule you for next week. So they reschedule him for next week. They bring him back, and they're like, well, it is your scope. And like, what did you do? What happened? This is like a miracle. And he's like, oh, well, I got this high school buddies back in California, and he like helped me change my diet and all that. And I like feel really good. And, got one to tell them about it. And they're like, oh, that's great. Yeah, I guess, keep doing what you're doing. If you have symptoms again, come back for another scope. See ya. So it wasn't like, hey, let's tell me more about it. It's just like, okay, next.
Right.
Not going to make our, 70 grand from cutting your colon out. So get rid of this guy,
Right.
So those are two of my favorites.
That was a great story. I think it's important that people understand that our bodies are innate healers. We need only to create the conditions to heal, and then just relax and let the body do what it does. And that's not our belief system. It's not how we're raised. And, it's really just not how we're taught in our society. You're sick, you need to go to the doctor. But really, if you're sick, maybe you should take a step back and think about, what have you been up to in the last week or last month or last year? What have you been eating? What kind of activities have you been doing? How has your life shifted that has maybe led you down this path? Because people don't know that toxicity could be the cause. They don't know that trauma they had when they were 10 is leading them down to this illness that they have in their 30s or their 40s. So I think it's an important message. So I appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, and it's not an easy pill to swallow, so to say, right?
Yeah.
It's much easier to abdicate all your responsibility and say, I'm sick. I got to go to the doctor, heal me, take care of me, do the thing to me, and, but like you mentioned, like our body does have this innate healing power. It's very powerful. And there's the phrase, and I think it comes from Spider-Man, funny enough, is with great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, if you want that power to work and you want that power, you have to take on the responsibility of creating conditions for that power to basically manifest.
Absolutely.
So if you want
Yeah,
power, you got to take the responsibility. And most people are like, doctor, fix me, give me the drug, do the thing to me. I have no power. You have all the power. And so that's a really tough paradigm shift for people to really wrap their minds around, for sure.
yeah, taking responsibility for your own healing. It's a big message. And I think that, the more we talk about it, the more people are going to understand. So,
Totally.
it's important. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your business and what you offer to clients and how that works. So how can people reach you, and what does your program look like?
Sure. So people can reach me. Obviously, the name's back here, Dr. Benjamin Benulis. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube. Look me up on any of those. I'm most active on Instagram. For people who just want the basics, right? Like, how do I get started with this? That sounds like a lot. That sounds like a big deal. I have a free book. It's called the Autoimmune Recovery Blueprint. Basically, what it is like if I could go back in time 11 years ago to when I first got sick and just give myself like a little book that's like, here, just do what's in here. Like, just start with this, like real basic. Like I would have like the blueprint. I would have the way to go, okay, like don't have to go down all these other dead ends. Can just do what's in the book and get started here. So that's like really like what I want to give to anybody who's like looking to get started, like doesn't know where to begin. That's like the jumping off.
Okay. I believe that's on your website, right? So we can share the link in the description.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you the link at the whatever, but just Google Autoimmune Recovery Blueprint. You probably find it, or just find me on social media and I'll link to it there. For people who like really want to take the dive into creating health and know that, they're going to have challenges. They're not going to be able to do it all on their own. They need support. They need encouragement. They need inspiration, motivation, all that. I do have a coaching program. It's called the 8-Week Wellness Accelerator. And I basically have a group of people that I support them through making the shift and changing their diets and their habits and their lifestyle, which, as we mentioned, is not easy. And as we talked about, like, you got to take responsibility, but you can also get help. And that's where I really love to support people in helping them make those changes for themselves.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, I think that is everything. Is there anything that I missed? Anything that you want to say before we close?
No, that was it. That was great, Stephanie. I really enjoyed the discussion. I think we, like I was pretty animated. You pulled it out of me, so thank you.
Absolutely. I really, really think that the message is important, but even more so, I think it's important that people understand their own power. And, it's almost like as healers, we have to give people back their power, give them back their understanding that they have it all within them. So that's
2,000% on that. Agree with you. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, Ben, we'll have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You too.
Okay.